David Harris didn't need an alarm. He hadn't really slept. The weight of the day sat heavy on his chest long before the first trace of dawn cracked through the blinds. He rose in silence, the kind of silence that wasn't peace. It was pressure. This was the morning that decided everything. He dressed like he was preparing for battle, shirt ironed, slacks clean, shoes polished with care. In a small frame near the door sat a photo of his niece. She was 6 when it was taken, smiling with missing teeth. Taped below the frame was a piece of paper that read, "You're not who they said you are." He stared at it a moment, then turned and grabbed his backpack. Today was supposed to be the end of it, the final court hearing. No more check-ins, no more second-guessing every move. If all went right, the judge would sign off, and David could finally breathe. Just 13 blocks between him and freedom. He stepped into the early morning air and unlocked the one thing that had never failed him. A scuffed black bicycle, chains slightly rusted, seat taped at the edges. It wasn't pretty, but it moved. And this morning, it had a purpose. David cut through the streets, eyes focused, legs pumping. The city was waking up around him, bus horns, barking dogs, commuters rushing in every direction. He was on track. Plenty of time. Nothing could go wrong. Until he saw the kid. A young boy stood alone on the corner, panic written across his face. His red bike lay on the ground beside him, chain twisted and useless. His backpack was half open, papers spilling out. David slowed, skidding to a stop. "Hey, you okay?" The boy wiped his eyes. "My bike's broke. I'm going to miss my test." "What school?" "Franklin Elementary. Up that hill." David's heart sank. That was a 10-minute ride. He looked at his watch. 8:06 a.m. He should leave. But the kid's hands were shaking. David remembered how it felt to be 10 and afraid. How one missed moment could shift everything. He hopped off. "Take mine." The boy blinked. "What?" "Just ride. Fast. You'll make it." "You serious?" David nodded. "Go." "Thank you," the boy whispered, then sped off into the distance. David stood for half a second, then ran. Sweat soaked through David's shirt as he burst into the courthouse lobby, chest heaving. He didn't stop. Security barely noticed as he flew past, shoes slapping against marble floors. He reached the courtroom and pulled open the door. 1 minute past the start time. Judge Loretta Mays was already seated. She looked up, pen in hand. "Mr. Harris." David froze. "You're late." He stepped forward. "Your Honor, No," she cut in, her tone ice. "You were given a specific time. You understood the consequences. Please." She slammed her gavel once. "You are fined $200 for failure to comply with scheduled proceedings. Supervised release is now subject to employment review. You may leave." David stood there stunned. "Next," she called, already moving to the next case. The bailiff gestured toward the door. David didn't move at first. His fists were clenched at his sides. But he said nothing. He turned and walked out. David stepped out of the courthouse into the morning light, but it didn't feel like freedom. It felt like failure. He walked down the stone steps slowly, each foot heavier than the last. His legs ached from the run. His shirt stuck to his back. His palms were slick with sweat and frustration. He reached into his pocket and unfolded the crumpled fine slip. $200 for being decent. He blinked hard against the sting behind his eyes. This morning was supposed to mark the end of a chapter. Instead, it had torn out the final page and spit on it. David checked the time. 8:49 a.m. His shift started at 9 a.m. The building loomed ahead like a fortress of lost chances. David pushed through the employee entrance, swiping his badge, praying the time clock hadn't flagged him yet. The warehouse floor buzzed with forklifts and conveyor belts. Orders stacked, packages moved, deadlines ruled everything. He clocked in. Red flash. Late. His supervisor, Mark Donnelly, spotted him from across the floor and strode over with clipped steps. "You're late." "I know. You're also under probation review. That means I got a notice from the court. You violated your hearing schedule." David's throat tightened. "It wasn't like that. I don't care what it was, Mark snapped, glancing at the clipboard in his hand. You've been good, real good. But I got a zero-tolerance policy when it comes to infractions. David felt the blow before the words landed. Are you firing me? I'm letting you go, yeah. You can clean out your locker. David stood there, stunned. You said if I stayed clean. I also said the court has the last word. I'm not risking compliance over one guy, even if he's been solid. David nodded slowly, like he was absorbing something physical. Right, he said. Of course. Mark hesitated, something in his face softening. Sorry, Harris, I liked you. But this ain't personal. It's policy. David turned and walked to the locker room without another word. He opened the dented metal locker and stared at the few things left inside. Extra gloves, a snack bar, and a note his niece had tucked in his lunch weeks ago. Uncle D, you're winning. Not today. He dropped it all in a plastic bag and walked out of the warehouse without looking back. Brandon burst through the front door, still out of breath. His backpack hit the floor, his shoes skidding on the hardwood. Judge Loretta Mays looked up from her kitchen counter, mug in hand. You're late. I made it, Mom, he panted. I passed the test. Barely, but I made it. She arched an eyebrow. How did you even get there? Your bike chain was hanging off the frame when I last saw it. Brandon gulped from a bottle of water, then held up his hand. Okay, so? You're not going to believe this. She folded her arms. I was stuck, right? Chain totally busted. And then this guy, some random man, comes up and asks if I'm okay. I told him I was late for a test. He didn't even hesitate. Loretta narrowed her eyes. What do you mean? He gave me his bike, Mum. Just handed it to me. Said go and took off on foot like it didn't matter. Something in her gut twisted. She set her mug down carefully. Brandon opened his backpack and pulled something out. A wide black Velcro strap, torn from the bike frame as he'd parked it near the school. It had a white label stitched into it, the lettering worn but still readable. David Harris, 123 Oak Ridge Avenue. Apartment B court case number 714932-H. He handed it to her casually. It came off while I was riding. Thought maybe we could find him and give it back. Loretta took the strap slowly, her eyes narrowing as she read the name. Brandon kept talking. He was in his 30s, I think. Black guy. Kinda tired looking, but nice. Real calm. He dressed well, and I think he was running late or something. Loretta froze. Her hand tightened around the strap. Did he say his name? She asked, already knowing the answer. Brandon shook his head. Number, he just gave me the bike like it was nothing. Loretta's eyes flicked to the folder on the counter. David Harris, 8:30 a.m. Hearing. Failure to appear on time. Signed. Fined. Written off. And now? It wasn't just a case file. It was a man. A black man in his 30s. Running late for court. Because he'd stopped to help her son. And she hadn't even let him speak. David sat on a cracked bench beside the basketball court, eyes fixed on nothing. The plastic bag from his locker rested beside him, still unopened. A few teenagers shot hoops in the distance. A boombox played old-school R&B under a shady tree. The world moved on, indifferent to the fact that his world had stopped. He gripped the court fine in one hand and the termination notice in the other. His jaw clenched. He wanted to scream. He wanted to throw both papers into the wind, to run until his legs gave out. But instead he just sat there, breathing, bleeding on the inside. How do you explain to people that doing the right thing could cost you everything? Judge Loretta Mays stared at her computer screen, but hadn't typed a word in 20 minutes. She held the bike strap in her hands, thumb tracing the stitched name over and over again. David Harris. His case file was still open beside her. Late. Fined. Employment status jeopardized. All because she didn't give him 60 seconds. She prided herself on being impartial, on treating every case by the book. But now, that book felt brittle, flawed. Her thoughts were interrupted by her clerk, Veronica, poking her head in. Ma'am, there's a parent from Franklin Elementary who'd like to thank you. Said her son got to school just in time and scored high on his test. Wants to send a gift basket or something. Loretta blinked. A gift basket. For a miracle that wasn't hers to claim. Tell her no need, Loretta said quickly. Just thank her. The door closed again. She stared back at David's name. And for the first time in her long, distinguished career, Loretta Mays felt like a fraud. David unlocked the door to his small apartment. The silence inside wasn't peaceful. It was suffocating. The kind that crept into your bones and whispered that no one was coming to save you. He tossed the papers onto the counter, pulled a glass from the cupboard and filled it with tap water. Sat down, leaned back, closed his eyes. A knock came at the door. Once, twice. David didn't move. The third time it was louder, sharper. He opened the door slowly and blinked. Standing there was Judge Loretta Mays, dressed in plain clothes now, no robe, no gavel, just a mother, a woman, a human being. David stared at her, speechless. She lifted something in her hand, the bike strap. I believe this is yours, she said. He didn't move. I didn't know, she said softly. At the time, I didn't let you speak. And I didn't know it was my son. David's face remained calm, but his eyes burned. That's supposed to make it better? He asked, voice low. No, she admitted. It makes it worse. He took the strap from her hand without a word. I'm not here to fix it, she continued. I don't know if I can, but I came because I needed to say it to your face. I was wrong. David leaned in the doorway, eyes hard. You were more than wrong, he said. You were the system, the part that talks about justice but don't know what justice costs. Loretta swallowed. I want to make this right. David looked down at the strap, then back at her. Then you better start talking louder than the silence you gave me in that courtroom. The clip was 42 seconds long, shaky, shot vertically, no filters, no edits, just raw. A kid crying near a broken-down bicycle. A man, black, early 30s, dressed in worn work clothes, pulling up beside him, clearly in a rush. They exchanged only a few words. Then, unbelievably, the man handed over his own bike, gave a quick nod, and sprinted off down the street. The caption read, Some hero just gave this kid his bike so he wouldn't miss a school test. Faith in humanity. It was posted by a woman walking her dog who happened to catch the moment from across the street. She had no idea who the man was. No clue that he had a court hearing that morning. No clue what it had cost him. But by 9 a.m., the video had over 80,000 views, and people were asking, who is this man? Did he make it to wherever he was going? Why does he look like he's running for his life? David sat alone with a paper cup of coffee going cold in front of him. He was trying to look busy on his phone when his screen started buzzing with notifications. At local feed 404 tagged you in a video. 12 new messages. Trending, number sign, bike hero. He clicked the video, and there he was, sweaty, stressed, handing over his bike to a kid he didn't know, and running like hell. He froze, then scrolled. The comments were a wildfire. Find this man. He's a legend. I hope the kid made it to school. Somebody give this guy a job. This is what heroes look like. David sat back, stunned. Nobody knew what had happened after that video. Not yet. Judge Mays was already mid-call when Veronica burst into her office, phone in hand. Mom, she said breathlessly, you need to see this. Loretta waved her off. Not now. No, you really need to see this. Veronica set the phone on her desk, screen facing up. The video played. Loretta watched in silence as the scene unfolded. Brandon. The bike. David. Her face drained of colour. I didn't even give him 10 seconds, she whispered. Veronica looked up. Is that? Loretta nodded. That's David Harris. Another message popped up on the phone screen. Local news wants a statement. Apparently, someone figured out the man in the video was just fined by a judge for being late to a hearing that morning. Loretta felt the weight of the walls close in. Her silence had become a national headline. The headline blazed across the screen. Man fined in court for being late because he gave his bike to a stranded schoolboy. Update. That schoolboy was the judge's son. Anchor. Public response to this story has exploded online, with calls for the court to reverse its decision and restore Mr. Harris's job. As for the judge, Loretta Mays, there's been no official comment. Yet. David's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Calls from strangers, messages from reporters, job offers, interview requests. But David wasn't celebrating. Not yet. The internet didn't know about the fine, or his job, or the way Judge Mays looked at him like he was just another case file. Now they did. He picked up his phone when the last name that appeared nearly made him drop it. Judge Mays, calling. He let it ring. Then it rang again. This time, he answered. Mr. Harris, she began, voice lower now. There's a statement I need to make publicly, but before I do, I wanted to know if you'd like to speak first. David said nothing for a beat. Then, no more silence. The room was packed. Cameras, reporters, members of the public, some clapping as David stepped up to the podium, others waiting to tear into the system that failed him. David didn't look like a victim. He looked like someone who'd carried injustice and finally decided to speak. I didn't do what I did for attention, he said, voice steady. I gave that boy my bike because he needed it more than I did. I ran because courtrooms don't wait. And when I got there, I wasn't given a chance to speak. He paused. That fine cost me more than money. It cost me my job, my dignity, my name. Cameras flashed. But here's the truth, he said. We talk a lot about justice, but justice without compassion is just cold policy. And policy doesn't raise kids, doesn't help neighbours, doesn't carry people when life hits hard. A wave of silence filled the room. I'm not asking for pity. I'm asking for change. Judge Loretta Mays stood behind the podium. No robe, no bench, just a microphone and the weight of the world on her shoulders. Flashes went off like fireworks. Every network had a camera pointed at her. She cleared her throat. Yesterday morning, I presided over a routine hearing involving a man named David Harris. He was late. I issued a fine and moved on. She paused. But I did not listen. The room went still. My son was the boy in that video, the one whose bike broke down, the one Mr. Harris gave his own bicycle to, just so a kid could take a school test. She took a deep breath, her voice cracking slightly. While my son pedaled to his future, David Harris ran toward a courtroom that treated him like a number instead of a man. Whispers rippled across the room. Loretta looked directly into the cameras now. I failed him. I failed you. And I failed the bench I've sworn to honor. She reached into her blazer and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. I'm officially vacating the fine issued to Mr. Harris. But that is not enough. Another pause. I am voluntarily stepping down from my post effective immediately. And I am requesting an independent review of how we handle time-sensitive hearings, especially for those without resources. The room erupted. Some gasped, others applauded. But Loretta didn't wait for the reaction. She left the podium with her head high, and her heart finally honest. David leaned against a railing, scrolling through his phone. His press conference had gone viral. People were calling him brave, noble, selfless. But he didn't feel like a hero. He felt tired. Then he noticed a woman approaching, older, in a blazer, briefcase in hand. You David Harris? She asked, out of breath. He nodded cautiously. She smiled. My name is Olivia Cardenas. I run a foundation for exonerated individuals and those impacted by systemic injustice. We watched your story. The whole board did. David raised an eyebrow. We'd like to offer you a position, she said. Spokesperson, community outreach, advocacy work. You'd be the face of something bigger. If you're interested, David blinked. You want me to work for justice? No, she replied. We want you to change it. David sat in the same chair he'd dropped into the day before. But now everything felt different. He stared at the old bike strap still sitting on his counter. David Harris, 123 Oak Ridge Avenue, Apartment B court case number 714932-H. The same strap that had gotten him identified. The same strap Brandon had brought home. The same one Judge Mays held in her hand when she apologized. He picked it up, turned it over, tightly wound it around his wrist like a band. Then he smiled, just a little, because the ride that cost him everything might have just given him something more. Some people think doing the right thing is easy, that it always leads somewhere bright. But the truth is, sometimes it costs you time, jobs, pride. The question isn't whether it's fair. The question is whether you'd do it anyway. I gave my bike to a kid I didn't know, and for a moment, I thought I lost everything. But in the silence that followed, people started to listen. And that's the thing about truth. It doesn't shout. It echoes. If you enjoyed this story, kindly like, share, and comment. Where you're watching from it will encourage us to bring more powerful stories like this to you.